The information provided in this show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Viewers should use their own discretion and consult with a healthcare professional for personalized guidance and recommendations. Hello and welcome to the Health Revolution. We are so glad you're here today. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and we are excited about today's episode. No matter where you're tuning in from, no matter where you're streaming in, just know that as we are moving and grooving, you'll see some show notes at the underneath the display screen. So you're going to want to refer to those as we dive into the gems and the informations and the takeaways that we're going to have. So in terms of what the show is about, it's about three things. It is engaging conversation, elevating health and wellness, and empowering transformation. And so it's not just a physical aspect, but it's also the mental piece. It's the mindset. It's all of these multifaceted approaches that allow us to live an optimal life and seek one of those. So as we're moving, we're going to be covering mental wellness today, and we're having the impactful conversation. So this means that I got to introduce you my incredible guest for today. So her name is Lisza Crisalle, and she is a health, nutrition, and mental wellness advocate, but she's got some street cred to the table. So we got to dive into her backstory. So she is a business growth strategist for health professionals. She spent 3 decades in the health, nutrition, and mental wellness space, and the last 20 years as an entrepreneur and a co-owner of Exercise and Nutrition Works Incorporated with her husband, Lucho. Today, Lisza brings her experience in business marketing, branding, and coaching to the fields of health, nutrition, and mental wellness. So with her, she majored in exercise physiology, which she tied in her background in fitness to the business world. She has her BA, a minor in marketing. She's continued in the fitness industry. She started kind of like me as an instructor and a trainer for everything from swimming, skiing, martial arts to aerobics, indoor cycling. She's a top 5 NPC figure competitor in her 40s. That stands for National Physique Committee. And she has spent over 20 years as a certified health, nutrition, and mental wellness coach. And in terms of a strategist, she helps business owners leverage their time to impact more lives. So let's dive into that. And without further ado, allow me to bring up Lisza Crisalle. Lisza, how are you today?
Hello, hello. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here too, because all the backstory that you have, I can relate to a lot of it. And for women near and far and those who are tuning in, I'd love for us to tune into how you got to be the rock star that you are right now, and what brought you to this point where you're in the health and wellness space.
Okay, well, it's been a long journey, so I'm not going to, I'll do the shortened version of that. I know you and I have had some really great conversations around this, and I've always been involved in the wellness space, always. I mean, from a little girl, I've always been in sports and all kinds of activities. And I grew up mostly up in Oregon, and I got my degree in exercise physiology. So I was really set on, I thought I was going to work with professional sports teams. That was my whole goal. I wanted to work with professional sports teams and do physiology. And, sometimes what we set our sights on just never really, I ended up going down a whole nother route. And that was great, but it brought me back because it gave me the foundation for the work that we've been doing for the last 20 years. And I've always had one foot in the wellness space, even for those 20 years that I actually managed law. So that's a whole nother story. So I brought that was my business side. And then when I met my husband, he's a registered dietitian. He's we call him the OG in the space because he really developed some really cutting edge programs and software, et cetera. And I kind of came on board, and we just built this up over the last 20 years, incorporating the fitness side, the nutrition piece, and the mental wellness piece. So,
and this is huge, especially in today's day and age that we are evolving and we are integrating so many important areas of our lives together so that we can just make a bigger difference for our future. Not to sound cliche, but we're integrating more than we did before. How did you pave the way as a woman coming into her own and being able to, to decide this is the avenue I'm going to take? We didn't really have too many trailblazers back in the day.
Yeah. It's interesting. I believe that we are drawn onto our path. Okay. So the right things came to me at the right time. It was very, very interesting. I knew I was in this industry. You just, when you're starting out, you don't really know what it's actually going to look like. Right. And I never would have imagined. And in fact, last month, we just celebrated 20 years of our company, which is amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And yet 20 years ago, we never would have imagined that we were doing the work that we're doing now, like really impactful work. We started off in that space, but we were, we started off with our specialty in a niche, and we got known, and it sort of expanded and grew. And it took some changes along the way. But doing the work that we're doing now has been, it's what fuels us. It's what fuels us going forward. And we know that, again, we can be, leaders in this space and take people through helping educate and help them understand what is possible, and to be able to make great choices for themselves based on the facts and the information that they have, instead of all this craziness that's on, there's a million things out there and the fads and all that. So what we do is we impart education and knowledge so that people can make informed decisions.
So take me back to the earlier days, being a woman who was, and when I say back in the day, obviously Gen Xers I'm not a spring chicken. I know we talked about our age before. And so did you know back then that your health, how you were leading, that this was going to be an example? Did you know back then that you were going to put the emphasis that you were going to? Did you feel like you were destined to do so? Or was this something that was a little more serendipitous?
It was more serendipitous, actually. I mean, I just was following my passion initially, right? I loved, as you said, I love anything to do with sports and athletics and outdoors and all of that. So I just followed my passion and did what came naturally to me. And in doing so, the right opportunities came to me. So I will tell you, honestly, it was more serendipitous because it sort of led me down the trail to where I am now. I will tell you, so that was in the beginning, but I will say, I would say probably starting around in my 40s when I started competing. When I was competing, I did my first NPC competition at the age of 44. And when I placed in the top 5, I was up against 20-year-olds. Now, do I wish I could have started in my 20s? Absolutely. But I didn't know about it back then. But I loved it. And I was very passionate about it. So I had this feeling back then. I knew that weren't a lot of women my age and above. There were not a lot of women in that space. And so I started really recognizing at that time that I was sort of spearheading a new area. And I don't think I shared this with you. At the time, I actually had a program called Over 40 Fit and Fabulous. Like, just again, online, you guys, like way ahead. Like, this was probably back in 2007, 2008, like really early years. And I just knew that I could impart and help women not feel like they were destined to, let themselves go and all of that thing. Like, I could provide them resources and tools to be able to live their best life. Because that's really it. It's not about being at 9% body fat. It has nothing to do with that. It's more about how can we be our best selves, in whatever version that looks like for you, like for each individual. And so that's the piece that I got really passionate about, and where I would say the last 20 years, I've really been literally almost 20 years. I just turned 61. So yeah, like I want other 40, 50, 60-year-old, 70, whatever, like we can do this. Like, let's have fun. Let's live our best life now, right? The kids are grown, all of those things. So I'm all for it.
Yes, I love that. And just to add context for our viewers, and the NPC is a division underneath it's a bodybuilding division. So it stands for National Physique Committee. And these days, more and more people have learned about that being something that fitness enthusiasts of different areas like to tune into. So there's everything from the bikini, the figure, the fitness, the physique, and then the classic bodybuilding, both for men and for women. So over the last couple of decades, this is a sport. It's considered a sport that has grown, and so then we have people who enter. And so I have to admit that I did that for a couple of years, and it really pushed me. And I did feel that being in the master's division, of course, that's over 35. Being in the master's division, that I felt a little bit of a trailblazer because it wasn't at the time, that wasn't as prevalent as it is today. Did you feel like did you have that context in mind that I'm going to trailblaze? I'm going to really move mountains. I'm going to pave the way so that others can. Did you have that mindset back then?
I would say not for my first competition. My first competition was just survive this, like just survive this. But once I did, it was just like, this is not only possible, but, sharing with, I did share a lot with other women, like, hey, this is another area that we can certainly go to. It's not everybody's cup of tea. It's not, it's pretty extreme, but and what I'll tell you is, going through that, I also learn, what happens. There's some side effects to competing. There's side effects. There's what happened on the other end. And that's where my spearheading really started, because I realized what effect it had on me on body dysmorphia. Big issue with people who compete. Also, a lot of challenges with gut issues, because you do very, very extreme dieting. And again, I don't like the word diet, but in competing, it is diet. It is extreme dieting. And so there's a lot of side effects. And so that is the place. And I didn't know it until obviously after I was done competing. I didn't realize what would happen. And so I'm always come from an observation place. I observe, I watch, how am I reacting? How are other people reacting? What happens after the fact? So I do something called plan, do, review a lot. So, and I do that with myself. I do that with my clients. And so that's where everything evolved from, because it was going through the process, which was amazing. And I will always be grateful to it. I did, I pushed myself to beyond where I ever thought I could. And my results were incredible, which meant I knew I could do it, right? I know what that took. But I also experienced afterwards, after you get back into real life, after you're done competing. And not that I don't want to go into too much detail here, but my mother got sick and got very ill. She had cancer. And the only reason I stopped competing was because of that. So I had to stop everything and go up and get my mom and take care of her. We moved her in to live with us. And so it changed, obviously it changed all my priorities. And, so I stopped very sort of abruptly, I guess you would say. And, there were other side effects that happened with that as well. But I use that all as a learning experience.
I couldn't agree more. I think in the 2 to 3 years when I did that, the one thing that I noticed was, several things that I noticed. Number one, it's a vessel for an example of a transformation, that when you put your mind to it, and then there are goals. So then there's the overall goal of the division, making top 5, being first call out, that sort of thing. And then you have many people have just a personal goal of, let's see, how can I present what I understand to be my best package, and then all that implies. And then, so then when you're putting yourself through some rigorous challenges to get there, you actually find out you've got some guts to do that. Now, there is varying degrees of to the extent that somebody prepares, and you are right that there are levels of extremeness that are extreme levels that are associated with that whole with that realm. But I think that a lot of people have discovered that they have more power than they ever give themselves credit for.
Yes.
Would you say that you saw that when you were going through that?
Absolutely. And I use it as an analogy all the time, right? I use this as an analogy, which is working through tough things. Like I'm going to tell you know this, it's not easy. There's sacrifices. And again, I use this analogy. It's the same thing in business. It's the same thing in setting goals for anything. When you set a goal for something, there's something else that has to be sacrificed. There is. It might be time. It might be time with family. It'd be TV or whatever it is, right? Or, I had a little thing that I did for myself. So right before, leading up to competition, you still want to go out with friends and do different things. And so what I would always do, this is you do extreme stuff. You bring your own food with you when you go out to eat, like it's crazy, right? But I would always tell myself, hey, guess what? Like this place will be here when I'm done and I can always come back to this again. It's all right. I can't have it right now, but later on, absolutely. So I'll use a really quick story. We were in a mastermind, a really, really high level mastermind. And we all came out to Las Vegas. This was before I was living in Las Vegas, but we came out to Las Vegas and we had a really big event here. And there was a restaurant nightclub that had just opened called Taos. And it was like the spot. And we ended up having a very special, I think there were like 20 or 25 of us in a special room out to dinner there. And I was getting ready for competition. I literally had to bring my own food with me. And all this amazing stuff was out there. And I just said, you know what? It's still going to be here. We can come back to Vegas another time. Like you guys, it's learning how to, how to challenge yourself to know that you can overcome those things. It's always a choice. And it's how strong are you at making that choice? How important is this to you? And if it's important enough, you'll do whatever it takes, just as if it was for your child. If you were doing something for your child, you would move mountains, right? So it's the same thing for yourself. How do you flip that and make your goal that important to yourself that you you put in the stakes down, you draw the line in the sand, and you say, this is what I can do, and you can do it.
And you said something pretty powerful that, that we have the choice of putting value. So what I got out of all of that is that when we recognize the value and we commit and we see what our takeaway is, what we stand to gain versus what we stand to lose. So if we choose to put that value, so then we have that mind shift. And so then that's where we can leverage control with how we're wanting to hit the goals or the journey that we're on. And so I think it's always pretty powerful because a lot of times we end up debunking our own myths of things that we didn't give ourselves credit for that we could do, but that we technically can do. But then it's seeing the cup as half full.
Absolutely.
Yes. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We're going to be right back here on the Health Revolution. Stay tuned.
Coming this spring, by popular demand, the second season show on The Tour of Love. And the E360 TV platform is saying we want the tour of love.
With winner of the first Global Impactor Award, Tamara Hunter, along with Emmy-winning co-host Skip Thomas.
We are going on tour, on the road. It's time. Love unites, and there is healing through connections. This is a worldwide movement, the tour of love.
We're back here on the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison. We are spending some quality time with my guest, Lisza Crisalle. She is a health, nutrition, and mental wellness advocate. We've been talking about her stance in the fitness and in the health and fitness industry. And then what's important for us to highlight, of course, is the mental wellness behind everything that we do as human beings. So I want to dive into that. And Lisza, let's talk a little bit about the difference between mental wellness and mental illness. Share with us your input.
Yeah, I always like to make a distinction here because so much is what's happened over the last few years, what we've come through these last few years, coming through the pandemic, coming through all the challenges that everybody had to deal with. But I'm also very, very clear that mental illness is literally an illness. It's a sickness that is treated by specialists. Okay, those are things like, disorders, personality disorders, very deep level, challenges, right? Very, very deep level challenges. I don't deal in mental illness at all. I really make that clear. That is for specialists. And so if you have someone who's bipolar or seriously clinically depressed, like those, you require a specialist. Where I talk about mental wellness, and I really want to make sure it's distinct and understood. Mental wellness is more of an overall approach. So we deal with things like anxiety, with stress, overwhelm, energy, focus, clarity, all things that I help educate people on how to naturally, holistically deal with. Okay, because we know that it is all it is all really an internal option for us. Meaning, I talk a lot about the gut-brain axis. Okay, many people think mental wellness has to do with just what's going on in your brain, but what people don't understand is that it really starts in your gut. It all starts in your gut. In fact, 90% of our serotonin, 60 to 70% of our dopamine and GABA, which don't ask me to say the GABA, are all produced in your gut. Now, what are those? Those are your happy hormones. Your happy hormones are actually produced in your gut. So having gut health is critically important overall. And so that's why I was talking about my competing days earlier, because in doing extreme diets, guess what it did? It really destroyed my gut health. I was using a lot of synthetic supplementation, things that were really rough on your body, extreme, you eliminate entire, macronutrients out of your meal plan. Like it's extreme stuff. So I've really focused these last few years in understanding gut health, what effects happen. So what you put into your body, it's just like you would never put regular gasoline into a Ferrari, right? You just wouldn't do it because it'll gunk it up. It's the same thing with our body. When you put, preservatives and synthetic things in there, it gunks everything up and it depresses our microbiome. And the microbiome are critically important for increasing those happy hormones. And so when you have a healthy gut, guess what? You have a healthy brain. You get your happy hormones come up. You're able to deal with things like stress and overwhelm and all of those things easier. I'm not saying that but it makes it easier. It's all of a sudden things that would make you snap. All of a sudden you're like, okay, like we can deal with that, right? Completely different approach.
And you bring up a really important point. I think obviously in the last few years, there's more of a concentration on gut health. And I think for me, once upon a time, I didn't associate the two. We didn't, that's not something that society has emphasized for us. But, I never associated the brain with the gut. And I never even I remember even in biology class, even in taking science classes, early, say high school days, it's not something that that I remember focusing on. But you're right, because if the gut is thrown off, then it manifests, then the result is that it manifests elsewhere in the body.
Absolutely. And we've actually done research that shows that as a fetus, our gut and our brain are actually connected in the formation stage. And then they are, as they grow, that's where it actually separates with the gut brain axis that ties them together. Like, this is fast. I could geek out on this stuff, but it's fascinating. But when you understand that connection, all of a sudden it makes sense. And so the work that we're doing right now is about healing our gut biome, healing our gut for many, many reasons, dealing with things like leaky gut syndrome. And what leaky gut syndrome is when the lining of your gut tears, like it spreads apart and it tears, and you get little tears. And when you get those tears in your gut, things leak out, right? They leak out into your body and cause reactions. And that's where people start having different types of, aches and ailments and different things. And we know that when we can heal that gut, heal it up, and we do this with natural supplementation, natural components, it makes a world of difference. It literally, you're seeing the changes. And I just want to add this piece, which is, my husband and I, we spent the last 30 years studying macronutrients and really figured out that it's the micronutrients that are the game changer. The macronutrients are the important components. Those are, when I say macronutrients, you guys, it's proteins, fats, carbohydrates. Most people are familiar with that. We teach you how to combine them properly and how to do that. But it's the micronutrients that are going to make the difference in your body. Hands down, science, like proven, there is no doubt about it. And so that's my mission, is to help educate people with that.
Where do you think, in your opinion, where do you think the holdup is in terms of society understanding how the body is functioning? What is contributing to us not getting this point?
TMI, too much information. We're on information overload. We really are. People think they can go to the University of Google and they're going to get all their answers. And unfortunately, the University of Google has everybody's opinions. Okay. It has opinions. It has, we're seeing today, and again, this is a challenge that my husband and I have dealt with. Somebody goes and they lose 20 pounds or 50 pounds or 100 pounds. And all of a sudden they think that they're an expert in nutrition and coaching other people. And it's really scary because, again, with proper education, you understand this is our byline. Everybody is different, right? Everybody is different. And so just because you used keto or intermittent fasting doesn't mean it's going to work for the other person. And this is where I start to get into my, my little thing. But, people don't understand the history of how these quote unquote diets came about. For example, keto diets were designed as a cancer protocol. That's what they were designed for. And they are very effective. Science shows that it's very, very effective for specific types of cancer protocols and cancer treatments. But here's the challenge. That's what it was designed for. It was never designed to be a mainstream diet. Now what happened? Somebody got a hold of it and thought, okay, well, that worked great. Let me, and then they started sharing it. And now keto becomes this big mainstream diet that has now evolved and been changed, and, everyone makes their own thing. And again, I'm not, I'm careful on this because nutrition is like religion. Everyone has their preference, and that's great. But understand that everybody reacts differently to different protocols.
I wonder sometimes if maybe it's just that there are some that just figure that, well, if the majority are experiencing XYZ from ABC, that, well, then that's just the case across the board. So I wonder if there's just so much of like a generalized, like do this or do that when it comes to the body, that people just, that there are, say, some that just treat it as gospel, like this more of a blanket statement. Do you feel like how much of that scenario have you come across, especially in the last few years?
Oh my gosh, like so much. It's just like, here, try the. I just lost 20 pounds. You guys can do this with me, right? And people are you're going to get results when you do something different. You just are. If you change what you're doing now, you're going to get some kind of results. There's no doubt about that. The challenge is it a lifestyle? Is it something that you can sustain for a long period of time, right? Do you want to like remove an entire food source out of your meal plan for the rest of your life? Like, our body was not intended for that. We need full macronutrients to perform optimally. It's just learning how to do it right for your body. So yeah, we're seeing this all the time because, again, overload of information. People are, well, that worked for her, let me try it, right? And the challenge is it may work for them for a while, but is it a lifestyle? And that's the piece that we want to just help educate people to understand, that we can create a healthy lifestyle and still have food freedom and life freedom and still be able to perform optimally, feel our best, not put on excess pounds, right? When you understand how to fuel your body properly and to get all of the macro and micronutrients that you need, it's a game changer. It's a total game changer. It literally changed my life at 60. At 60.
That's incredible. I love hearing the turnaround stories like that. Take me back to 2020. Okay. So obviously the world shuts down, COVID hits, we're all impacted. What did the work that you were doing, what did that look like as you were addressing mental wellness back then? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, it really interesting. I'm glad you asked that. Prior to COVID, prior to the pandemic, people didn't really talk about mental wellness. It was like that under the radar kind of conversation. Many people, and I will say there's certain, entire, what's the word I'm looking for? Groups of people who like never discuss mental wellness, like never. So it was really a taboo subject. It was discussed a little bit. Obviously, when everything got shut down, people were shut in, and we know that, the numbers, I have statistics. The statistics on how much mental wellness issues, stress, anxiety, depression, all of those skyrocketed, not only during the 2 years, but since we've even opened, right? And it's continued to grow. Something like some astounding numbers. We're having children as young as 5 years old getting clinically diagnosed with mental wellness issues. Like it's crazy. Sorry, just messed up my hair. Anyway, I talk with my hands. I can't help it.
Oh, you're good.
So these numbers were really scary. So in 2020, we were just starting to see it. I would say it wasn't discussed until I would, become more mainstream until 2022. I would say end of 21, 22, it really began to be a discussion. Now, we have partnered with a global company that actually started in 2016 or 2017, addressing the mental wellness piece. They're actually trademarked the mental wellness company. So we knew it was a discussion. We were dealing with people prior to the pandemic who were under extreme stress. We see this a lot with entrepreneurs, C-level executives, people who have the stress and the pressure of everyday life right now. And so we started addressing that. And then it became, we never anticipated the pandemic, right? We never anticipated that piece. So we were ahead of the curve. And now we have this opportunity to have these discussions that are more widely discussed in open conversations, and to let people know that they have alternatives to prescription medications. Okay. And I'm just saying, many people have turned to those things, but guess what? Prescription medications, every prescription medication has a side effect. Everyone. If you don't mind me sharing this, I actually pulled this up. I have this on my other screen, so excuse me for not looking forward. I have a lady who shared, and again, understand people are getting prescribed things for all kinds of issues. I'm not going to name what this drug is, but it's an anti-epileptic drug. It has 12 listed potential side effects and symptoms, from panic attacks, attempt to commit suicide, depression, anxiety, agitated or restless, thoughts about suicide or dying, irritability, angry, violence. You guys, I can go on and on and on. And this is on the prescription, like little sheet that says, you take this and this is a possibility. Okay. Now, does it mean it'll affect you? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know that. But this is scary when we know that we have natural, holistic, Chinese and Ayurvedic protocols that we have shown to proven to reduce all of those naturally, organically, by addressing the gut-brain axis, by addressing the gut health.
So how do you start the conversation with someone who maybe has not given a thought to the natural options, or that things that aren't as synthetic? How do you begin that conversation with someone who, let's say a viewer is watching and they've got a loved one and they're dealing with the situation and it's impacting their overall mental health? How do you start? What's the right dialogue to have?
Thank you so much for this question, because health choices are very personal. They're very personal, and I will never, ever, make someone feel bad or wrong for choosing to go the path that they choose. But what I want to educate people on is to let them know that they have a choice and there are other options, and to do your due diligence. So again, I think there's a time and a place for Western medicine. There absolutely is. And I know, having been in the nutrition industry for 30 years, know that exactly how the body can respond when it's given the right fuel and the right sources and the macro and the micronutrients, and what can happen. So what I share with people is this: please do your due diligence. Know that there's not just only one way. Most medical doctors have one semester of training in nutrition. One. That
scared me when I first came across that. That is a true and alarming because of just how much is tied to our nutrition.
It's very alarming because there's a lot of reasons. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but just understand that doctors have very limited nutrition training, very limited. Our nutrition certification is almost 4 times more comprehensive than a doctor's training that they get in medical school. And so we educate people on what happens, the science of what happens when you put the right fuel in your body. Okay. So when someone is, faced with making these kind of decisions, I would say, please do your due diligence. Don't rely entirely on your doctor. Now, some doctors, I will tell you, we're seeing more and more, not a lot, but more and more doctors that are stepping outside a little bit more and getting more training and education. They have to do it on their own. It's not in medical school at all. They have to physically attend and get certified in different areas. Excuse me, one sec.
And you're right that it's not something that's part of protocol for doctors to have, and hopefully, this will be an area that will continue to evolve where that will be part of curriculum.
I hope so, but it's pretty unlikely. And again, I don't want to get into some of the underlying issues with that. However, know that there are a lot of trained holistic nutritionists and guidance that out there. I say do your due diligence. My whole mission right now is to get the word out, let people know that they have options and that there are holistic and natural ways to address many of these things. And again, I'm not talking about we're not talking about things like diabetes and heart disease and things like that, although we have had phenomenal results with helping people lower the A1C levels, dropping their cholesterol levels, dropping their blood pressure, all of that holistically and naturally. But again, when you're under doctor's care, we will never tell you to not do that, but you have a choice. And when you educate yourself and to know that you have options, and guess what, you can always use, well, not always, let me put it this way. You can always be open to learning more. Now, if it's something, I actually made a note here. I actually had someone who reached out. Oh, go ahead.
Let's go ahead. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to continue as soon as we come back right here on the Health Revolution.
so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been shown that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
Share this with your friends and family and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a Buddies Network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
We're back here on the Health Revolution. My guest today is Lisza Crisalle, health, nutrition, and mental wellness advocate. As we're continuing the conversation, those of you tuning in, if you are tuning in live, if you're streaming in from wherever space that you are streaming in from, don't forget, we would love to hear from comments from you, so you can feel free to plug that in, and we certainly invite the interaction with those of you tuning in live for today. Now, Lisza, we were talking about we started to delve into the correlation between nutrition and mental wellness. And so let's pick up where we last left off. Where do you see things going today in terms of the type of traction that we're gaining in this space? And how much are you seeing today of those who are now starting to tune in to how this is affecting our body and or just our overall future?
Yeah, I love that. So first of all, I'm going to say shows like this, okay? The Health Revolution is spot on. Like, this is so important right now. I'm actually really thrilled about this, because this means that we're having, just like you said, greater traction, greater awareness, greater, ability to connect to people who, I couldn't possibly reach myself, right? And so shows like this, having a resource for people where they can come in and they can learn. And it's not just me. It's like you're sharing different protocols and different things, and people are going to be naturally attracted to what what feels right for them. And that's where I was kind of answering before, which is, I would never tell someone not to follow their doctor's orders ever. And trust your gut, listen to your own instincts. There's nothing wrong with trying other things, if with your doctor's permission, if that's the case, or making a choice. But I would say it's really important that we have resources like this, like the Health Revolution, shows that people can access on their phone, on their computer, listen to while they're driving, I do a lot of podcast interviews. So my mission, again, is to get the word out there. I do speaking on stages as well. So I would say, for someone listening in your area, look for places where you can get more education, right? Listen to what's out there. You're going to hear different protocols. You're going to hear different things. And it's going to either sound like really wacky and crazy to you, or you're going to be like, wow, that really sounds logical. That sounds right for me. That it's, again, I think our approach is lifestyle based. It's designed for a full life. It's not a quick fix diet or a quick fix anything. It is really creating a lifestyle and quality of life. Everything we say, physical wellness, mental wellness, and financial wellness. So as people have their life feeling good and doing better and improving, everything starts to pull in together. So listen to your gut. Reach out to resources such as this. I'm so excited about this show, and I went and did some research on some of your past guests, and I'm going to say you are bringing in some literally A-level, top-notch people here. So it's fantastic.
Well, I'll tell you, that's the goal, and that's why you and I are talking today, because I consider what you bring to the table important. takeaway gems. And so I appreciate the flowers, of course. And, one thing you brought up something that's important that I think viewers tuning in would be critical to remember. And that's having that right conversation with our healthcare providers and being able to find it and be able to use your voice, but looking at it as a collaboration. So making sure that we're able to move the needle along in a way that's most appropriate. So I do think that you're right about having the right doctors, having, doctors who have that ear to listen. And that's huge.
Yeah. And I'll share with you, I haven't, I went through a challenge for about 5 or 6 years dealing with hormone issues. Ladies, here's a reality. Like I was 55 or so at the time. And, I've been in nutrition and fitness forever, since I was literally a little girl. And all of a sudden my body was changing and things were happening. And I'm like, what is going on here? I know what to do. And no matter what I did, nothing was changing. It was getting worse. And, I went through a whole process, 5 or 6 years long. I'm not going to go through everything. And then when I really dove into the micronutrient component here, it changed everything for me. And it was right before I turned 60. And I will tell you, at the age of 60, I'm past that now, but I was not only in the best health of my life, like physically best health of my life. Because when you're competing, that's not healthy. I was lean, I was cut, I looked amazing, but it wasn't healthy. And here I am at 60 years old. I have more energy. I have focus. I have endurance. I feel like we just started our company, our business, right? I'm excited. I love to share this. I'm really passionate about things, and I'm in the best physical shape of my life. And honestly, that's a game changer. And I just want to shout it from the rooftops to people and know that just because we're 50, 60, whatever it is, it does not have to go down. It can go opposite. I literally feel like I'm reverse aging. So, and I've been in this industry forever. And how is this even possible?
Well, you look phenomenal for being in your 60s. I will say that first and foremost. And the fact that, with all that you're sharing, obviously the conversations are getting bigger and bigger. So when you and I spoke before, what I gathered was you were working with some high performers. And so what does that look like these days?
Yes. Wow. That's another great question. So we have done a lot of, I guess you would call them joint ventures, right? With some pretty big people in the health and wellness space. We've been obviously known in the space for a very, very long time. My husband and I like to say, we have our company and we just sort of do our thing. And we've created our own lifestyle. We love it. But now it's like things are exponentially growing. It's really crazy. And so, yes, we're doing, I call them joint ventures, or we're partnering up with a lot of very, very high level people who have very big platforms, just like this, a platform to be able to share this message forward. And I think that's really the way that you get a mission out there, right? You get a mission by being on platforms that allow the people who are looking for that a place to learn. And so right now what's happening is they're coming to us, which is phenomenal, right? I know someone's going to hear this show, and hopefully reach out. And that's fantastic, because it's a platform for us to educate and share options for people on what's possible. I can't name any names, let me put it that way. But there's another big TV show that we're in talks with right now. We do a lot of work with online marketers. So, because we come from that space, so we're doing some amazing partnerships there. We have a phenomenal partnership that we have started on with someone out of Australia. We have teams that are all over the world. So it's really fun. It's exciting. And knowing that we're in a place that we can share this with other like-minded people.
So, the message is, I think what's helpful is that the message is clear that as we continue to evolve in society, just day by day, that there are alternatives to creating that that level, that caliber of life where we can live optimally. And so what I like about what you're saying is that you're, that hitting the nutrition component, but also mental wellness, that it's more that the definition of that and what it stands for has evolved from what we've known of what wellness has, what we've known that definition to be in the past. And so, to me, it's profound that when the message is clear and we share, at least we've got that knowledge to then make even much more granular choices for our life.
Yeah, I would say wellness, and I love that you said that. Wellness is really the combination of mind, body, spirit, all of those pieces that we're putting together, and people want a quality of life, and that's that piece. That's understanding how can you bring those together so that we get to live a fulfilling life and not one filled with stress, anxiety, and pressure and all of that, because we actually have tools. You just have to reach out. Like that's it. There are tools to help with this. And again, bring that together, and shows just like this, you guys, are so important. And I'm so happy to be sharing this with you, because you are the epitome of sharing exactly that, the mind, body, spirit, and everything that works together so that we have quality of life.
Yes. Well, I appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be right back right after this.
Jeff Pearson here, host of Invisible Condition, where we talk about all the people who are living and thriving with all those conditions that you can't necessarily see from the outside. Join me every Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time on E360 TV.
We're back here on the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison. We've been spending incredible time with Lisza Crisalle, health, nutrition, and mental wellness advocate. Lisza, we're going to go ahead and bring up your website and talk a little bit about how people can reach out to you as they're leaning in and they're getting the gems for today's episode.
Oh, wonderful. So yeah, I just realized that's a really long one, but that's okay. That website just kind of has resources of all of our projects and programs that are going on now. I would say the best way to reach out to me is either Facebook or Instagram. On Instagram, I have some links in there, and you can learn as well on my bio. I think in the show notes, you'll have all of my links. I also have a couple of gifts for your listeners as well. I love to have the opportunity to share with them. I have a healthy lifestyle quiz that is phenomenal, really, really simple, that I encourage you guys to go in and do. It only takes a couple of minutes. And my Unplug ebook, which is just a beautiful little resource filled with 24 techniques to just create calm and manage your lifestyle. With just resources in there and links in there as well.
Yes, and you are correct. We've got the show notes there, and it's got all the information. Anything coming up for 2024 in particular?
So, I'm glad you asked. We don't have a live event scheduled right now. We used to do an annual event, which is actually listed on that website. It's called Monetize Your Nutrition Knowledge. We don't have that on schedule now because we're doing more individualized work and a lot of traveling. We're traveling quite a bit. So at this point, I don't have a live event actually scheduled, but that could change at any time. Believe me.
Obviously they can. So obviously viewers can tune in, and then the website's going to be updating just in real time then.
Absolutely. There's everything in there. If there's programs, there's free resources in there. Lots of different, opportunities there to connect. But we love to connect personally. So I would just say, reach out to me via social media, either Facebook or Instagram. And I love to connect. I'm happy to answer any questions, provide resources or tools, or guide you somewhere. That would be my pleasure. I love to connect with people here, and let me know, make sure if you reach out to me that you say you saw me on the Health Revolution. Okay. Because I'll take care of you.
Yes, absolutely. Real quickly, for everyone tuning in, we're going to bring up our website one more time. So if you are interested in getting updated information on our show, we've got our newsletter you can subscribe to. And then, of course, Tuesdays and Thursdays, we are on the Achieve TV channel on E360 TV. 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Lisa, it was great to have you today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm honored. I'm absolutely honored. I love the platform. I love what you're doing. So thank you.
I appreciate you. And for those of you tuning in, thank you so much for your time. And of course, until next time, take care. We'll see you then.